Alright, in this tutorial I'm going to demonstrate how to solve a system by substitution. So in this problem, when I look for substitution, what I look for is whatever you have y all by itself typically alludes to that you can do a substitution. So in this problem, I know y is equal to x squared minus 1. So y is equal to x squared minus 1. So anytime I see a y, I know I can substitute or plug in x squared minus 1. So in this problem, in the second system here, the bottom one, I know I could take that x squared minus 1 and plug it in right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite that second equation, but substitute in x squared minus 1. So what this is going to look like is you're going to still have the negative 7 equals negative x squared minus, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put parentheses here as I substitute in. So I'm going to put x squared minus 1. So I plugged that in. So y equals x squared minus 1, substitute it in. Next thing I need to do is I need to solve this equation for x. So to get there, first thing I would like to do is kind of get rid of these parentheses. So this negative sign, it's almost like a negative 1. I'm going to distribute that all the way through. So negative 1 times x squared, I get negative x squared. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Meanwhile, everything else in the equation stays the same. Looking at this line, I can look at and realize I can combine like terms. So the x squared and the other x squared, so negative x squared minus x squared, I get negative 2x squared. Still have the plus 1, still have the minus 7. From here on out, I'm looking for how can I solve this quadratic. Since I have just an x squared, we could solve this using square roots. So I'm going to move everything away from this x, and then I'm going to use a square root. So I could subtract 1, subtract 1. So we get negative 8 equals negative 2x squared. Continuing from there, I divide by negative 2. So I have 4 equals x squared. So now that I have my x all alone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use square roots on both sides. Square root in x squared, you get x. Square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. So I'm going to have two different answers here. One of my answers is going to be when x is 2. My other answer is going to be when x is negative 2. So once you know x, we're going to go back to the original problem, and we're going to plug in what we know for x to figure out y. So I'm going to take this x and I'm going to plug it in for this top equation. So I'm going to have y equals 2 squared minus 1, which is y equals 4 minus 1, which is y equals 3. So one of my answers is going to be x equals 2, y equals 3. Still have to keep going. I got to plug in my x equals negative 2 into one of my two original equations to figure out y. So I'm going to continue by plugging into that top equation. So I have y equals parentheses negative 2 squared minus 1. That's y equals 4 minus 1. Y equals 3. So my second answer is x equals negative 2, y equals 3. That is an example of solving by substitution.